Aloha, aloha, everybody, and welcome to another wonderful episode of my Soul Talks here on my channel. And I'm so excited to have our wonderful guest today, and I'm going to introduce you to her first. Her name is Christina Fletcher, is a spiritual alignment coach and energy healer. She helps too busy to I love that part, by the way, too busy to meditate, never stopping women align to their heart center and develop inner guidance without retreating from their lives and even with emotional baggage. Through coaching, speaking, and courses, she offers simple tools and practical spirituality so you can show up whole as your best self. And I love this so much because that's the kind of way I always call it, close to life spirituality, because we are busy people and we're not living in a world where we are allowed to go on weeks and months and hours of I mean, some of us do, but most of us don't. And we're I always think of the Dalai Lama, sitting this picture of or a Buddhist monk sitting on this hill, sitting there meditating all day, which is probably something we would all love to do, but we just can't because of our lives. And that's why I'm so excited to have you here. Hello.
Hello. Well, I'm excited to be here. And yeah, absolutely. This is something that I'm really passionate about. Someone reminded me the other day of this Ram Dass quote, which is basically, if you think you've reached spiritual enlightenment, go spend 10 days with your family. And I think that really does
Oh,
mean,
yes.
it's all fine. In a lot of ways, it's like, yeah, we all want those retreats. We all want that escape up the mountain. We all want those silent times of a month on end. But then we all get back to our regular daily lives. And it's like, it's time. We're living in a time where it's vitally important to immerse those two. They have to become one, where we are the retreat. We are living within that space, even if we're doing the dishes, driving in
Yes, I
traffic.
love that you're saying that because for me, I remember when I was starting, on my spiritual journey, started to go to, workshops and, having courses that went a whole weekend, or even, like you said, like a retreat week with, because I started off with shamanic background. So
Mhm.
when I started doing all those, and it was, you go into that retreat and you have this whole week and the energy's high up and you're going all with it. And then you come back home and it all just, it hits you like a wall,
It does.
and you're back in your natural environment. And another thing was also, and that's why I love the way we're allowed to do coaching nowadays, because now we have the internet, now we have Zoom rooms where
Yep.
we can meet our clients, because that way, and this is something that I really wished I had way back when I was starting out, because then that would have been a little bit different, because then you have your coach that actually comes to your home,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
And you can
Yeah.
start changing it when you're at home and
Oh,
do
100%.
that.
I mean, it's funny because I just had this conversation the other day where someone was like, oh, well, do you ever, it was someone in the States and I live in the UK. And they were like, do you actually in your local vicinity, do you meet people in person? And I do occasionally, but the thing is that I can go so much deeper with a client on Zoom. And it's a hard thing to actually, it's not something I actually get an opportunity to speak on very often. But the thing is that you're right. When I'm meeting with someone on Zoom, they are in their home. They are in their natural environment where they spend all their lives. And because of that, when we do energy work, when we do the coaching work, when we change those, frameworks of their reality, we're doing it there. We're doing it within the structure of their lives. So therefore, then when they push end meeting from me, they're still in the space. They don't have to go back into the old patterns
Yeah.
and try to change them. So yeah, no, I don't think enough people talk about the phenomenal tools that we have. The fact that we can meet like this and be part of each other's energy and a part of each other's lives and part of each other's experience, and yet push that end meeting, and we still get to carry that feeling with us. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
That's
I
something I get
love
really passionate about.
Yes, I love that, because it's true, because in the end everything is energy. And I mean, I do understand that for some people, or maybe for certain situations, it's nicer to actually, be
Okay.
sitting
Yeah.
face to face to each other. But I mean, we're sitting face to face to each other here right now.
We are. We are. And I mean, I will say, like, okay, like I'll do workshops occasionally, and I'll do an online workshop over New Year's. Every year at New Year's, I do a big New Year's workshop, and I'll do it online. But then this year, I also did it in person. And selfishly, personally, this was a really phenomenal shift because I did get to be in the space with the people. And yet I also knew that as soon as they left, they were going to have to implement. They had to have a little bit more uh, motivation within themselves to go and implement everything that we talked about. Where there, so that there's a little bit more self work involved. So it was kind of like, okay, here's the tools in this space, and we've made a magical environment, and we've made this beautiful energy in this space, and we can hug each other and talk to each other and work together in this space. But you're going to have to now take this and go and run
Yeah.
with it. Versus when you're in the home already, there's just that little magical shift, where the changes become a little bit more subconsciously tangible, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely, because you're sitting in the space where it's happening, right? Because I mean, right now I'm sitting here where I always sit. So if you would be coaching me, this is where the transformation would happen, and this is the place where I always am, and
Yeah.
most of you probably have the same thing with our clients. They're either sitting on a sofa or sitting at their dinner table,
Yeah.
and that's where they eat. So the energy that you transforms in that space, and it's
Yeah.
beautiful. I mean, it doesn't mean that it doesn't work with the
Oh,
face-to-face
100%.
workshops. It does the
100%.
same, but it takes, like you said, it takes this, because we are all responsible for our own, doing and growing, and I feel that, because that's actually something that I have to deal with. Some of my clients is like, oh man, now that you're telling me, now I remember,
Yeah.
but I didn't
Yeah.
remember in that moment. And so that's the part where we as coaches can't really help, because that's the part where everyone for themselves have to, in that moment, take the decision and remember, find ways to remind themselves, right?
Well, and I mean, that's the human dilemma, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, like one thing that I often work on with clients is the fact that, yes, we're spiritual beings. We're having this physical experience. And as spiritual energy, we are thrilled and in wonder and in awe of the life we get to live. And there's so many things we want to explore. And there's all these changes that we know we can do. But we're also still a physical being. We're still like physical form. And part of that physical form is our brains. And our brains love pathways and patterns and things that are safe. We do have that kind of reptilian survival, old structured kind of computer in our heads that tells us where danger is and how to survive. And that's basically what it's trying to process for us. So we have these spiritual experiences, but we're really too big for our bodies. And so our brains are always a little nervous when we start trying to make a change. It's like, oh, this is gonna make me feel so much better. I feel so much more myself. And your brain goes, but we haven't been practicing that for a really while, and we're used to being kind of in this space of feeling really bad about ourselves, and that's safe. So can't we stay there? Because we need to feel safe in our victim. It's like, and you kind of, as a spirit, you go, that makes no sense. But it's what we're used to. It's like, I'm used to feeling scared. Thanks. I'll stay here. It's too scary not to feel that fear. It's
Yeah, because it's
paradox.
free fall. It's free fall.
It is. It's free fall. It's like, wait, you want me to have faith in something I can't see? And your brain kicks in, and that it's important to understand those two aspects. And that's where wholeness is so important to me. That's where understanding and having compassion for all parts of yourself is so important to me. Like, that's, in my mind, that's what practical spirituality is all about. It's actually bringing spirit into your physical reality. And so therefore having compassion for your physical reality, understanding your brain does not feel safe in change. It's like, I always compare it to like that cornfield where, it's walked the path, the same path for a very long time. And you're saying, let's walk over here. And your brain's like, that seems like so much work. Why would we do that? So, as soon as you like start understanding where your brain's at, you understand that you can start having compassion for it. It's not the enemy. It's just something that's trying to keep you safe. And like a small child is a little misdirected.
Yeah.
And you kind of go, it's okay. Pretty soon we'll make that new path and the other one's going to grow over and you'll feel so much better.
Definitely, especially because the other one's draining me.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. The other one's leading you. It's like you think The other one you think is safe, but really it's actually like triggering your entire nervous system. It has you in this constant state of like draining, like you said, and constantly feeling scattered. It just takes that little bit of discipline to guide yourself over and trust the process. But
Yes.
of course, we feel better when we have someone to talk to about that. Because otherwise, we
Exactly.
think that
Exactly.
our brains love to convince us that we are talking absolute nonsense and should just go back to flipping channels on the TV and be okay with it.
And I think it's amazing because you're putting it in such a nice way, which I try to do as well always. And nowadays I even laugh at, moments where my brain starts going crazy like that. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And it's funny. And okay, I do understand. Okay, we need one more day. I'm going to give you one more day to wrap your head around, but tomorrow we're doing it.
Yeah.
And then we do it. And it's like, splash. And that cold water. And suddenly
Yep.
you're, oh, that's what it was.
Yeah, I know. And you're like, well, I don't understand. This feels so great. Why have I not been doing this? And then you're like, oh my God. You can literally feel your brain being like, well, that was nice. Why don't we do that more often? And you're just like a small child. It's just like a small child. It's all good.
But it's also, like you said, because it's like a small child, it's so necessary to have the compassion for it.
Absolutely.
It's so extremely important to to be fine. It's okay. You're a human being and you're allowed to take time. We're not going to push you, but we're going to be there to remind you always.
Yes, exactly.
So that when you're ready, yeah.
And it's important to ride the currents of the wave, right? Like there are times, personally, not that long ago, I was kind of going through just a little bit of a swarming time where it just like kind of felt like everything was in transition, and I could feel my brain being like, woo. And so rather than being like, okay, well, let's sit and meditate for an hour, or let's do, let's journal this out, that I knew was just going to feed my brain in acknowledging the swarms. Instead, I sat and watched lots of little friends clips on Instagram because I knew that it was like, you know what? You're going to laugh. You're going to feel light. You're going to be distracted. And there's nothing wrong with a little bit of distraction. And it's okay. It's like just fine. And then all of a sudden you kind of go, okay, now that's forming into a pattern brain. We're not going to do that very often. Put the phone down. And so you ride the wave just like you would a small child. It's like the small child will always want to, have the chocolate all day long.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
yeah. But you go, no, we're not going to do that. But you can have some chocolate. That's okay. It's that understanding, that sense of healthy habits, and understanding the sense of how patterns are formed and what's really important underneath. So yeah.
I love that because I actually use the emergency kit with my client. I call it the emergency kit because for me, I remember when I was studying, I did a semester of psychology, and I remember when they were talking about people who are depressed, that when they are in their full depression, when they are having their depression, when they're in the midst of the whole thing, you would never, as a psychologist, you would never go in there and start doing therapy with them.
Nope.
Instead, that's why where medicine comes in, you help them to, get out of the hole first, and then you start doing that.
Yeah.
And our brains, if I'm not going to say everybody, wait until you have your depression. No, but, for us, it's similar to once we have a challenge or a problem, we have this like fight-flight mode, and we want to immediately find solutions for everything, but our brain is not in the space to create those solutions. And that's why I then tell them, take your emergency kit out. I have I use this to show them, and bring out your emergency kit and use it to just become neutral, energetically neutral, like
decompress.
watching Instagram, or go on Netflix, or go for a walk, or, meet your friend. I love, because I'm living, in a 3-generational household. I love walking over and get my nieces in and giving them a hug and playing with them a little bit, just to not think of what,
get out of your head.
For that brain to settle down a little bit.
Yeah, because it's true. Like, what are you doing? Fight or flight? It's a natural state of being that you jump into fight or flight. But when that's just a continual space, then of course you're going to feel depressed and powerless because you don't really know what you're flying from. You don't know what you're trying to fight. So therefore, it's a question of calming your brain down to the space of remembering safety. So, this is my emergency kit, which I do love, is as a term. I think that's fantastic. Little things. I use a lot of energy work. So things like focusing on your feet to actually just ground you and plant you to the earth. Noticing things that, for all of your five senses, taking deep breaths into your body. Over on my own podcast, Showing Up Whole, I had this great interview with this guy who was talking about the power of awe. And it was understanding that feeling of awe shifts your whole perspective. And you can actually do it simply by looking at something and appreciating it for a certain period of time and waiting for the awe to kind of fall over you. So you actually, it's that split second of perception of where you put your focus. Where attention goes, energy flows. It's my motto that I live by. It's vitally important. Where attention goes, energy flows. So if your attention is like, I'm so depressed. Oh my God, I'm so depressed. I'm feeling so low. This is so horrible. This is so horrible. This is so horrible. This is horrible. All your energy is flowing out to all of those stories. You're just adding fuel to the fire. So just divert attention somewhere else. Just 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Yeah. Until your system is ready to actually, okay, now I can look at it. Now let's see what's happening here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I mean, like, that's the other, we always say that you can't find the solution to a problem if you're always looking at the problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that so much. And I don't know why, but I just got reminded of, I think it was like a week and a half ago. I was driving back from shopping with my sister, and suddenly 7 deep. They're a little bit smaller here where I'm at, so it's not. They sort of felt like Bambi's mom, so it's not the huge deer, but the smaller ones without the antlers. And 7 of them came running out of the woods on the right. Like, I had to slow down. I slowed down the car, of course, because when you see them, it's like, oh my God. And they're running straight to the road, and they just passed the street and then just went into the field on the left side. And I just remembering that. And actually we had the time because I stopped the car. My sister immediately took out the phone. And so we have a little video of that.
Oh, that's amazing.
And, and those are like, make yourself a little folder in your phone where you have, videos of things that really give you that awe moment.
That moment.
Because for me right now, it's just thinking about them, gives me goosebumps. Absolutely. And I'm like, oh my God, so beautiful.
Absolutely. Right? And isn't it a lovely thing? I mean, when you so you practice the noticing of those moments of awe, and you practice savoring those moments of awe. And then you start asking yourself, where do those moments come from? Is it by accident? Or is it a question of, as we both go?
I was shaking my head.
Oh, I know. You're watching this on video. We're saying no.
I know, but for the audio people.
I know. That's right. We are shaking our head. No, of course it's not an accident. You are continually being sent assistance. And it's amazing. I love the idea that, all these things are always being sent to us all the time. But, you'll be stuck in your own little brain, and it's like not noticing. And you can imagine your angelic team kind of being like, oh my good God.
How many more signs do you want?
Okay. I always call them, I'm notorious for having those universe hitting me across the head with a frying pan moments. Like, that's the way. They're usually just like, cook-a-punk. And I'm like, oh, sorry. So, you're right. And they've gotten very used to. I once had an angel Reiki session with this woman. And afterwards, she's like, wow, they just laugh with you, don't they? And I was like, yeah, they do. She's like, they think you're hilarious. I'm like, I've been having that feeling for most of my life, actually. Yeah. I'm glad I can provide them with entertainment. But still, you notice the moments where you notice the frying pan moments, and that's what expands your life. All of a sudden, you just go, this is not what I'm focused on. This is not where I've been. And then you get that beautiful feeling of awe and that all expansive, heart opening moment. And you go, now I can breathe again. Let's resolve issues from this level, this space, this dimension, where we can actually see it from this spiritually connected space of spiritual awareness. And you can see it as psychology. It's like literally just a perception shift.
Yeah, and I also love that, because it's like you said before, energy follows your attention. Energy flows where your attention goes, and every day that you decide to focus on the beautiful things, I always call it my magic moment list.
Yep.
Where I have all those things stored in my head. Basically, you start doing that, and it all, just by starting to practice that every day or as often as possible. And we don't want to push you, we don't want to stress you, but as often as you can, because this can happen anywhere. And it could be a smile of someone when you're at the grocery store, in line for the cashier, or it could be a nice sunset that you see on the way home, from work, or there are so many.
Be a deep breath.
Thank you. And
I mean, we often forget what a miracle we live in. Like, this body of ours is such a miracle. When you think of, how often do you think about making sure that your heart beats regularly?
Yeah.
We don't think about those things. I don't have to think about making sure that my lungs are expanding enough to take it. Like, I don't weigh any of those things up. It just happens in its own conscious way, things. And not only that, it stores, it stores emotion, and it holds on to things, and it's trying to process things for you. It brings things back from generation. Like, you are living in a massive living organism, which is literally responding to your focuses and your energy and your environment. And it's always trying to find that balance. And it's a miraculous thing.
Yeah.
So even just taking a time to look at your hand, I used to always walk into my mom's bedroom, and she'd be like looking at her feet and wiggling her toes. And she'd be like, have you ever thought about how amazing that is? And as a teen, I'd be like, okay. But now I totally understand where she was at, that you go, yeah, that's pretty amazing. We, we take in loads of chemicals, and our body processes through them, and so many things. So
yeah, I know. And it's we just take it so for granted. And it's granted. Like, for every, because I don't know why this comes up, but I always also have to think about, people who have, want to have this diet or that diet, or, change whatever they're eating for whatever reasons. But, really asking your body, what does it, because there's so many different kinds of diets where you have to fit into the diet.
Yeah.
But when you start asking your own body, like, hey, what do you need right now? Like, hey, what are you hungry for? Like, you're telling me chocolate. Okay, is it the sweet thing, or is it the fat part of the chocolate that you need? And then, okay, if it's something sweet, let's try a banana. And then, go for the banana. And then, oh, hey, I'm not hungry anymore. And I'm not eating the chocolate anymore,
Well, and that's a really good way of looking at it, because even things like diets, if you're not careful, I mean, your body is so accommodating to you in so many ways. So, if I don't know if you've ever done any, like, serious mindset diet work. I hesitate to call it anything else, because it's really when you actually just start targeting something, and then you believe something about that. And so therefore, it's like if you all of a sudden start targeting your dairy, and then all of a sudden, so you think, maybe I should just eliminate some dairy. I'm just going to stop having some dairy. And so you stop having the dairy, and you feel better, and you start processing things differently. Oh, okay, that feels good. But your brain is not moderate in its ability. It's an extremist. So therefore, you've told your brain, this is the story, dairy bad. And then you happen to look at the label of something that you ate, and you go, oh my God, it had some dairy in it. And suddenly your body's just like in turmoil. Whereas you have to wonder, and I'm not saying that that's not a vital thing. And often you do have, like, you have people whose bodies have gotten so not, it's so intolerant of dairy that it is actually a serious problem, or like anything. But still, you have to wonder on the subconscious programming that we don't have a huge amount of control over, of how much that's being fed and how much your body and all your cells are responding within that. So it's a fascinating thing of where you kind of go, let's go light, just go light, go with ease, listen to your body, trust the process, know that your body's always trying to heal itself. It's always trying to work for you. It's always trying to correspond with you. It's understanding that flow, isn't it?
Yes. Oh, I love that you're mentioning that, especially because this is also something that you can put on anything, because it depends on how much, power or how much truth you put into
Yep.
what you're telling yourself, or what somebody else, if you have a nutritionist, or if, and this was just the food part. I mean, but imagine, it's the same thing when as a child someone told you you're not allowed to do this, or all those things that we make believe, or make ourselves believe as the only possible truth.
Yep.
And finding out the like, and this is the work that we do, is to find out that you don't have to believe everything.
No.
You're allowed to change those beliefs.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one of the first things that I work on with a client. And actually, I can actually send you a link to sign up for downloading the whole process of this, because this is something that it's so vitally important to, especially in this day and age, is that we have so many beliefs that have been passed down to us, and we just take them as fact, and then we take them as fact, and then we feel really guilty or full of shame when we don't assign to them. It's like things that make you a good citizen, things that make you, and let's just face it, if you were left to your own inner calling, your own inner light, you were not going to rob the bank. It's like you're not going to, if you listen to your inner conscience, your inner guidance of yourself, you are going to be considerate of people on the road, and you're not going to run the red light. You just it's going to be a natural calling. So yes, rules are important, but there is a general understanding within yourself. These things are imposed upon us, and then rather than allowing them to kind of bubble up within you and be like, oh no, that makes sense, I don't want to, I don't want to be that person. Instead, it's like, oh my God, I accidentally dropped that receipt from my wallet and it dropped on the ground and 3 blocks back, and now I feel so bad. I've destroyed the earth. It's like, these are the things that we carry. Or like you said, when you're a child and, you receive these information, one thing that always stands out is my mom loves antique jewelry. And so as a child, we were given, she always made sure we had jewelry. And I would proceed to lose the jewelry because it wasn't, I was a child. And then I had some child jewelry that I still had, and I passed it on to my kids, and they lost it because they were children and I didn't know. And it was amazing watching how often I'd be like, oh no, don't tell mom. And I'm like, I'm 30. That should not be. These things weigh you down. And when you have all of this information being bombarded to you, it's really hard to find your own inner guidance and your own inner voice, and that inner flow of understanding. Everything always works out. And, oh, you know what? Maybe someone else needed that thing that got lost, or maybe this will be something that supports something, or maybe the universe is working through this loss, or maybe you don't know. And to carry the guilt. So anyway, yeah, all that to say that there is a process that I can send you and you can sign up for, and it's how to break all that down and clear it out.
So. I love that very much. We're definitely going to put it in the show notes for the podcast. So if you're listening and you want to have it, just look in the description and you'll find everything.
Definitely. Because it's vitally important to clear out the junk. If you're going to renovate a house, what's the first thing you do? You clear out the clutter. You clear stuff out. You got to clear it out. It's just, you have to clear it out. So it's important.
And again, for your brains, it might look like the messier and more exhausting path, but for on the long run, that's going to be exhausting you really less than what's going on
Absolutely.
right now, as long as you
Absolutely.
have them.
Well, we don't want to look at our messes.
Yeah.
We don't like looking at our messes. We're kind of taught. And again, if that is you, then it's important to actually look at where that comes from. Where's the belief coming from that it's important not to show your messes or to admit to your messes? And I think probably every person has that in some aspect in their lives, that they don't want to admit that they have the closet. We all have that closet where you open it up and it's like a cartoon and but when the imagine of opening that up to be like, okay, time to declutter, like we don't want to even acknowledge that for ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's important to actually know that that's your brain keeping you safe.
Yeah.
That's what that is. Your brain is like, don't open that. don't you'll be squashed, and like, I don't know what's in there, and it's going to be heavy, and that bowling ball is coming out, and you're like, I don't own a bowling ball, that's just total fear. It's like it will pull out anything to make sure that you keep that door shut. So, but like we said, as soon as you open it up and go, wait, I'm going to get curious. Curiosity, beautiful tool for spiritual growth, right? It's like, I'm just going to get curious. I just like to know what's actually in there. And then you find all the stuff that you're like,
I love that, because this is reminding me when I started my digital nomad life back then. I gave up my apartment, and to do that, of course, I needed to, get rid of most of the things in my apartment. And it's an incredibly rewarding. And I mean, you don't have to start with your whole apartment. Just start, like you said, like maybe, if you have your small room where you put everything in, or just find one drawer and
Yep.
just look at that and see what you can.
It's funny how it's funny what it does. I think, and this is where practical spirituality really does create a different perspective in your life. So, you start off, like my husband and I went away the first week of the year, and we came back. We were driving back, and we're like, okay, what's gonna, because we're kind of like, oh, we're going home, and we're like, what's gonna make going home feel exciting? And we're like, you know what? We have too much stuff. Our house is feeling heavy. It's weighed down by the amount of stuff that we have. So we're like, let's go home and declutter. So we got home and we took a whole week of just like dumping stuff and reorganizing stuff. And the house is feeling lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter. So second week in January, declutter time, right? And we're like, okay, well, and the other reason was, it was because aside from the house feeling heavy with too much stuff, we also knew that we have a few things that we want to invite into our lives. We have things that we are working on manifesting, and we're aligning to, and we're in the process of opening up to. So therefore, you have to create space.
Yeah.
You have to create space. So symbolically, we made space. I then proceeded to witness as we went through another month and a half of decluttering everything else. So beliefs, our children's lives, they all of a sudden kind of erupted, and they were having all these new experiences. All of a sudden, it was like it was like everything tilted on its axis and created space for things to shift, and you just kind of witness as the decluttering goes on numerous levels.
Yeah.
And then you watch as, once you've done that decluttering, suddenly new things are coming in. And you get to choose. We'll also say that the house is starting to look cluttered again, which is highly disappointing. I keep being like,
but it's creating something for you to do next January.
that's right. That's exactly it. Wasn't that kind? And I will say that, you have to be careful, because it never failed. I cleared out all our old DVDs, and my daughter came to me like a week after, and she's like, hey, where's that movie? And I was like, oh no. So,
Oh, completely. Yeah.
yeah. So it's a fascinating thing when you see life more as a flow, more as an active, when you're an active participant of something. We're passed on this module that life is supposed to be this, like, I work with a few teenagers, and it's fascinating listening to them talk, as they're like, oh, well, I have to work like, I have to get this kind of grade and go to this program so that then I get this job, and then, then I'll be safe. Then I'll be secure, and then I'll retire. And you're watching and you're like, yeah, you know what? Life doesn't actually lead like that. It doesn't. No. And you can tell that everybody wants that safety, that security. But I think more than ever before, we live in a time that it's like, got to give up on that. I'm sorry. You have to practice your own security, your own sense of presence within yourself. You have to feel that security within yourself, that you're secure in who you are, rather than what you do, rather than what the world is. Because this is changing times, and you have to roll with the times. You have to be able to find that flow, that if there's cracks in the foundation, they're not cracks in your foundation. They're just indicators that you are decluttering and moving into something new, and you're creating space for something else.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's a process that's never going to stop, but
no.
I think you get more used to it. It's easier to do it. You're not afraid of it. And like you were saying, we don't like looking at our clutter or at our mess, but I feel, at least for us, it's, we've already gotten used to it, because we help other people look at their mess, and we look at our own mess. And for me, that's what my clients sometimes go like, what are you doing? Because for me, it's like, oh my God, another challenge. Yay, I found another fear that was hiding somewhere in my subconscious, and now I brought it out. And everyone's like, why are you so happy about it? Because I know what happens when I let go.
Yeah, that's exactly. Absolutely. And I will say, like, even it's one thing. This is why I always call my business spiritually aware, right? So I used to be a parent coach, so it was spiritually aware parenting. Now it's spiritually aware living, because it's not about being spiritual all the time.
No.
It's about being aware that perspective is there. So it's the awareness of it. So, even personally, like I mentioned, I keep mentioning my daughters are older. They're moving, they're doing different things. They are out of the house. I am, and I'm watching myself grow within that. So, and it's a fascinating thing where it will suddenly surprise you, where suddenly you go, okay, I have two little roads here, and I can take the spiritually aware one, or I have this lovely little ego voice that's really kind of nattering at me. And how interesting is that? Like, for instance, my daughter is in a new relationship, and she was down visiting with their family, and it was like this whole thing. And I saw photos, and you know what? They were having fun. And I will say, I looked at these photos, and while I wanted to be like, oh, that's so nice, I'm so glad, I watched as a little voice in the back of my head went, she's having fun without me. What do you mean someone else is having like a well-adjusted, lovely family? I thought their friends were supposed to come here. And I was like, you end up in that awareness, right? Where rather than reacting to everything, you just go with curiosity of going, hi, interesting. Okay, what's that? Really now? Okay, we might need to go back and do decluttering on that one, shall we? and but that's the process. And you do get excited, because as soon as you start seeing something like a little hiccup come in, you know that something's emerged to the surface and is asking to be decluttered, which means that it will create space, and then you will create space for new life to flow in. And you've got to be ready that you have to change.
Yeah.
You have to change. And that your brain's not going to like it, but life is a continual flow of change, always changing, always growing. And wouldn't we want that? You'd think that there's something wrong with your child if you looked at like an 8-year-old who hadn't learned how to walk.
Yes.
You'd be like, oh my goodness, this is something we need to look at. This would be seen as a medical emergency. It'd be something that you would want to dive into.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be like, oh, but they're so happy crawling.
I'm sorry that I'm laughing, but yes.
It's like, no, you'd want them to move forward. Yeah. And why does that have to stop at 18? It doesn't.
No. Yeah.
So it's you have to embrace your own growth.
And to bring a little bit of magic in there, how amazing is it? Or sorry, not magic. Awe is the better word. How amazing is that?
I like magic.
Or that we have a process yeah, let's bring in the
Yeah.
magic. That we live in a world where our system magically shows us where we want to heal. You know,
Yes,
it shows us,
absolutely.
hey, I'm having, with the thought, for example,
Yep.
or it shows us I'm being angry. This one's triggering me. Why is that
Yep.
person triggering you? Go in, look
Yep.
at that.
Go
Because
in.
I mean, it's magically showing up. And
Yep.
the only thing you have to do is give it space,
Yep.
have a good look on, don't let it pull you down. Don't give it,
Yep.
the negative energy attention, but give it some awareness, allow it, become aware of what it is, and then transform it so that you can move on. And
Yep.
how magical is that?
How magical.
We don't even have to do
Exactly.
anything. We just have to live our lives.
Well, and I mean, it's interesting because the image that comes up when you're talking about this to me is that, say you have a garden and you have these beautiful plants and these seeds that you've planted, and you want to nourish them. So if you are the seed and you are the plant that needs nourishing, occasionally, what do you need to do? You need to clear the weeds out. You need to clear the space around, because otherwise that plant is feeling choked. You're not going to be like, well, let nature take its course. Like it's like let all these things pile up on top of these plants. You know that that's not going to help you thrive. So therefore, you clear it out. You create space. You allow yourself to grow. You also are like, oh my goodness, it's 2 inches and now it looks like it's growing. Quick, do something. Stop it. Stop. Like, you're not going to do that.
Yeah.
And that's you. Like, that is you. You are continually growing and changing and moving forward and spreading out. It's important to clear the energetic, emotional, mental, whatever is trying to choke at you. It's time to clear it out.
Yeah,
Really
and
big
it's
time.
just a wonderful path to go through, to
Yes.
I mean that's why what I try, and I think you too, to encourage everybody. It's a beautiful work to do for yourself, and especially to see what happens once you start doing that. I think one of the biggest things that I noticed after, a couple of years of self I don't want to call it self improvement, but personal development, that's the
Yep.
right word. One of the things that I noticed strongly was that my whole body stopped being tense,
Yep.
because I had this tension in my whole body before, because I was trying to control everything, and watching out for the triggers, letting them pull me down, and then after a while, when you start going into that process and you start having fun with your fears and your
Yeah.
thought patterns that come up, and it becomes more fun, and then it's like your whole body relaxes into that flow, and suddenly you're like you're the 80% water that's in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautifully put. Because and it's fascinating to witness how, one thing that I often kind of, after working with someone for a little while, because they've come for healing, and we start to actually explore, it's like, so what does healed look like? Because we can tell this story. And it's interesting when you say it, it's like, oh, I've got all these triggers, and you start getting all tense, and you're like, oh, I need to clear this up and I need to clear that. And it's like, oh my goodness, I just found out about generational trauma and now I need to go heal my grandparents. And you're like, oh my good God. Okay. Like, it's like, let's not take it all on. It's like, also, you also have inherited your grandparents' growth. You've inherited their strength. You've inherited their lessons. So therefore, let's put it all in perspective. But when you actually start the healing path, you find that it doesn't need to be this tortured path. Rather, you're just clearing out the weeds. So the focus needs to be on the plant. It doesn't need to be on the weeds. Where tension goes, energy flows. So therefore, the plant is the key. You are the key. And I think it's important to remember that, what's your story? Your story is that you are part of the universe. You are stardust. You are a child of the universe. You literally came at this time as a spiritual energy, and you chose to have physical form in order to experience things, in order to be on the leading edge of all of this. And as on the leading edge of this, every time you have a bad day, I'm sorry, spirit still expands. The universe still grows, because you are in the contrast of it all. You are in the challenge. You're in the growth. You're learning new things. If you're pure positive energy, away from that, then you're pure positive energy. There's not a lot to bounce off of. So you are the bouncing off. And sometimes it can be painful and sometimes it can be frustrating. And sometimes you can kind of go, why? Hello, what's this all about? I was working with a client today and she's like, I'm not coming back. She's like, I'm done. I'm not doing this again. And it's like, yeah, understandable. But but we want to come back because we know this is where we get to play. This is where we get to grow and
Yes.
expand, and it's exciting.
Yes. I mean, not to diminish the energies up there, but I know that they have, full love and harmony and it's so beautiful, but they don't have this experience of going into sadness and coming out of the
Yeah.
sadness and feeling maybe sometimes pain and then coming back out of the pain and then the beautiful thing of having seven reindeers run
Yeah, absolutely.
or tasting things. I always imagine that that's something very earthly, for us to
Yeah,
taste,
very.
all the feelings that we have, or no, the senses that we have,
Yep.
to see something beautiful, to smell something incredible, to taste something. And even because I've had moments where, when I was, transforming something and being completely sad in the sadness and crying my heart out, and then at the same time there was a second being inside of me that
Yeah.
was going like, wow, isn't that incredible to be
Yeah.
able to feel this?
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And how easy is it to kind of think, I'm in the midst of it. But there is that observer present self where you are gathering, and expanding and growing. And that is a beautiful, wonderful thing. And that's what you're here for. So it's a fascinating thing when you embrace that. And I mean, yes, I don't think it's diminishing the spiritual entities in order to kind of talk about their experience like that. I think they're just like, yeah, tell me about it. But it's also like, and at the same time too, there's this beautiful essence of them being part of it all too. It's not like, I'm sure if they wanted to, they could take the leap and be like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to go be physical for a little while as well. So instead it turns into, it's like a movie production of like, we're the actors, but there's also some directors and producers and lighting guys and that you don't see behind the scenes. And so there's this sense of them just assisting. So,
and and I love that view of having them assist us.
oh yeah.
They are here to assist us, and it's just we just need to tell them what we need.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. 100%. And even just ask for help. I mean, I have this dear friend of mine who's a healer, and I should always kind of tag her or something whenever I mention this because I often tell people a lot. But she will say things like, she always talks about how at any point in time, if ever you're feeling disconnected from your true self, you can feel free to basically call out, I need 10,000 angels right now. And she's like, they'll come.
Oh yeah.
They'll come.
Oh, yeah.
And there's something about the 10,000 angels where it's not like, I need an angel. It's like, I need 10,000 right now. And there's something so empowering about
Where
it.
are you?
Like, and you just know. Like, okay. Like that's where this is. Like we talk about these physical forms. We talk about these brains of ours that keep things where they are. And we talk about all the patterns we do. But the thing is that you do have a sport team, and it's understanding and trusting and loving yourself enough to let that in.
I love that you're saying that because it just reminds me of a saying of a quote. I think that comes from the Hawaiian culture, because you were also talking about the ancestors, and it was I think it was a post that I saw somewhere, and it just said, "Wherever you are, walk and talk as not as if, because knowing that you have over 3,000 ancestors standing behind you."
Oh, I love that.
And for me, it's similar to that. Like whenever I feel the need, it's just like, okay, focus. They are there. They're
Yep.
standing right there, and they walk the path so that you can be here right now. And they didn't walk it so you're here only suffering in your victimness. So you get out of it. You're here to, experience the beauty of this world. And it's incredible.
Absolutely. I love to work deeply with my own grandmother, who I actually never met when she was in physical form. But she pops up every once in a while, and she's popping up more and more lately, I will say. And it's always, it's a fascinating thing to know that she was this powerhouse of this woman who really lived in the wrong time, 30s, 40s. Her power, I don't think, was really something that would have been received very well. And so now I can tell that we get quite excited at the prospect of working together, because it's like, okay, this is the time, here we go, and so there's interesting things when you remember who's behind you. And like, I talked to a medium last year sometime, and we were talking about how she actually channeled in, basically, because I was asking her about timelines and things. It's like, well, do people move on? When someone you love passes on, we talk about, oh, well, they're there to assist you, they're always with you. And she actually, she channeled in basically the fact that love families stay together. So the people who love you often will wait and kind of be in this extra plane. They won't move on to another life until, as a collective, you're ready to move on to another life. And I love that concept. I love the idea that it's what makes sense to me, that these people have access. You have access to those you loved. So yeah.
Oh, always. Love that so much. I could talk to you for hours, but I think
I know.
We have to have a little look at the time. So we're probably definitely going to do a second one.
Oh, happy to.
But maybe for now, because everybody who resonated with you, with Christina today, for our listeners, what do you do right now? Like, what's the type of offering you have at the moment for your clients?
I work one-on-one with my clients. So I have a small capacity that I can work with of a certain number of people. But I work 90-minute sessions with coaching and energy healing. And so that's my one-on-one offers. I do have a couple of courses over on my website that are going to be showing up. And so those will be, because I was a parent coach for a long period of time, I have a few spiritually aware parenting courses that are being finished up, because I just closed that business last year. But then I'm also have a podcast called Showing Up Whole, and which is my passion project, which I love to take part in. And spirituallyawareliving.com is my website. And there's always new stuff popping up, because I love to expand and grow.
Yes.
There we go.
Yeah, because when you have that inner calling of, that we have something to say, we just need to get out.
Literally, last night I had a membership for a number of years, and then I closed it in September, because I was like, no, this isn't quite right, and I needed to go into hibernation for the winter. And then literally last night I emailed all the members, and I just went, okay, we're changing this around, but I do feel like it's time. March is supposed to be an incredibly powerful month astrologically and energetically. Everyone's talking about March. So I'm like, okay, that's it. Sunday meditations. So I am offering Sunday meditations online. There's going to be links on my website of how to do that. Or you can just email me, because it was so impromptu that I know my assistant's like, what the heck's going on? I'm like, meditation classes on Sunday. So Sunday nights at 4 p.m. or Sunday afternoons, 4 p.m. Eastern, 9 o'clock British time.
Perfect.
Meditations and energy healings for groups.
That sounds so amazing. So we're going to put everything in the description for you guys, so you can follow and go in there. And this was so amazing. Like, it's going to be, I'm just, I try to always think of a title, of course, for this. And we went into so many.
We went into the gamut. I don't even know.
I love that.
As someone who has a podcast, I'm so sorry for your show notes. I do apologize.
Yes and no, because I just love it. This was incredible. I loved it so much, because we resonated so incredibly. Absolutely. And I hope we were able to bring you, to the listeners, a couple of insights for yourself to where you want to go, how to look at the things in your life, and your thoughts, and how I think the biggest, and this is also one of my favorite sentences: energy follows your attention. So ask yourself, where is your attention? I think that's a beautiful thing. Maybe I didn't want to take it away, but maybe from your side, do you have one last message for our audience?
Love yourself. Honestly, It's not a question about getting things right. It's a question about listening to yourself. It's a question about loving yourself and having compassion for yourself, getting to know yourself and loving yourself enough to do that. Love yourself enough to do the work.
I'm not going to add anything. I'm just going to leave you with this message because it's just so wonderful. And I know, especially for empaths, this is important. So please, take that with you guys. Love yourself so much. Thank you, Christina, for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for listening in. And as always, surf your energy wave. Bye, guys.
Bye.